Hey, wanted to wrap up with this business about cell phones and driving. There's a particular researcher, and I've got a video clip that follows this last video about David Strayer's research that's cited prominently in your text. To David Strayer's credit, there at the University of Utah, he capitalized on a line of research that was kind of ambiguous just about 20 or 22 years ago, maybe beginning in 2002. And you guys are pretty young, most of you, and I would submit that, well, I shouldn't say most, but some students are very young, and I might submit you just can't remember a time without cell phones. Then you have people like me. I think I was age 33 when I got my first cell phone, and this was in 2003. It was a Nokia, very basic, sort of a pill-shaped phone that didn't do much, but it introduced an idea. Are these things safe to drive with? And at first back then, there were people that could be described as civil libertarians that wouldn't hear that it was dangerous. So what they would say is, well, geez, if it's dangerous to speak on a cell phone while driving, am I also prohibited from eating a chili dog from Sonic or other things, putting on makeup if you wear makeup and those sorts of things? And the answer was they are indeed different. Speaking on a cell phone is somehow worse. For instance, you can see in this limited graph that listening to the radio, it affects a dual task differently than speaking on a cell phone. So there's one study here, and I'm going to read the caption here. This is from figure 4.14. Let me get that. Be right with you. Thanks for waiting. Now I can't find it. Here it goes. Basically, the bottom sentence there on 100, talking on a cell phone caused problems in two different tasks. So the participants used a joystick to move a cursor on a computer, and their goal was to keep it positioned over a moving target. At various intervals, the target flashed red or green, a signal to the driver to push a brake on the joystick or ignore the flash, etc. Participants first perform the tracking task by itself and then perform this dual task portion of the study, either listening to the radio or talking on a cell phone with a confederate of the experiment or somebody in a different room, etc. And they talked about something somewhat complicated like the presidential impeachment of 98 or about the Salt Lake City Olympic Committee bribery scandal, some news events happening then. So listening to the radio broadcast did not cause people to miss red lights. So what we're looking at here on the y-axis is the probability of a missed red light if I'm doing a dual task while speaking on a cell phone, and it's much higher than it would be if I were just listening to the radio. There's something about a cell phone that is somehow fundamentally deleterious. It distracts from your attention. And he's found, by the way, and I'm not sure the text mentions this, that this does extend to Bluetooth devices, that Bluetooth headpieces don't work, or they just don't help. They don't help the situation. So the probability of a missed red light is not trivial there on the y-axis. Missing a red light is about 7% probability, which we would assume is pretty serious. Maybe only 4% in the other condition. So, I'll leave you to watch that video. His other dependent variables are things like the probability of drifting over the lane in the center, the stripe in the center, running a stop sign, speeding, etc. And it's all much higher than in silent conditions. And it's even higher than it would be if someone were riding next to you in the car. So a logical question is, may I have a conversation that's with the passenger in the car? Is that also dangerous? And it isn't for some reason. And one of the reasons might be that you're performing in front of that passenger. You're afraid to show that person that you're a poor driver and that they're compensating for you. They're watching the road and attempting to compensate maybe for your sloppiness driving, etc. So having somebody there is actually helpful, and they're protecting you against your worst driving instincts. So he lists a couple, or your author lists a couple of experiments by Strayer and Johnston about talking on cell phones, etc. But I think the most interesting one is talking about the probability of missing a red light, as was the case here. Another one in figure 4.14 that I wasn't able to capture talks about reaction time, how quickly that you'll react as a driver. And sure enough, it takes longer when speaking on a cell phone to react in your car to stopping on the brake or doing something that you need to do. And that's the bottom part of 4.14. But the video is pretty intriguing, and it'll basically, I hope, convince you that it's rather dangerous to speak on a cell phone while driving. And that's not really the most controversial assertion right now in 2024. But you go back 15, 20 years, it really offended the sensibilities of what I would describe as civil libertarians that just won't have their rights impeded in any way. They just won't be told what to do no matter what the situation. And when cell phones were first massively available, this became an issue. And I'll give you an example, and I won't belabor it. 9/11. Now, I don't know how many videos there were of September 11th of all those awful situations of the planes crashing into the buildings and whatnot. But there might be a universe of maybe 20 or 25 videos. And they were captured on camcorders and the like. If a similar incident were to happen today, you would have literally tens of thousands of videos. We just didn't have the cell phone technology back then. I think maybe the Nokias could capture very crude GIF pictures, but they were extremely low quality, and it was unlikely that they had video. And that's just 22 and a half years ago. It wasn't all that long ago, but the introduction of cell phones has raised some questions, and I do like David Strayer's research. That APA video that comes after this one is really good.